we shall now begin. So the magic formula of success: how can we make our dreams a reality and become a success with a spiritual attitude? What is success? Successful people play to their strengths and overcome their weaknesses. Our true nature is to be happy, peaceful, calm, successful, and content. Everything we do, if we do it with a good attitude, then we are successful. Even if it's doing the cleaning or the washing up, if we do it with a good attitude, we gain success. Success is not something that comes overnight, we have to build it. And with the right attitude, we can all achieve the dreams that we want to achieve. Success has magic ingredients. We need to be intelligent in how to use our time. We need to know how to ask for what we want. I'm going to speak a little bit about my experiences, how we can become more conscious. This world needs more spiritual people who are successful, because spiritual people know that when they're stronger, we should help other people be stronger. So financial prosperity, this is also for good people. We can be successful in business. Also, we can be successful with a spiritual attitude. So if we close our eyes again, and I will repeat the statement, so be conscious of the breath in and out of the nostrils. Please listen to the words. Nobody ever became great by saying it's not possible. Fear is the greatest enemy. True faith makes us. No faith breaks us. Don't be greedy. Always leave a profit for the next person. Everything is possible. So please now open your eyes. So welcome again. And what I'm going to do this evening is I'm going to firstly tell you a story. And then I'm going to give you some examples in my life which I've reflected on that have helped me on my journey. And then perhaps after this talk, you'll self-reflect and think of your own story and the people that you've met who've helped you. So in 1999, I went to a lecture in Hamburg, in Germany. There were two monks from India, two swamis, and they were speaking about meditation and yoga. And during the talk, one of the monks was saying, only the present exists, the past is gone, and the future is imagination. So there is no need to keep digging up the past because it's past. And afterwards, there was a questions and answers. And somebody asked, Swamiji, you say we should forget the past, but in the West, we're encouraged to have therapy if we've had past difficulties to deal with our problems. And you're saying forget it. So could you please comment on that? And the monk replied, your mind is like a library of books. There is nothing to deny. All of the books exist, but it is our choice which books we take out to read from the past. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to share a few books out of my library to give you a feel for me and a few things that I learned along the way. So I was born in a suburb of London. My father, he left school at 15 years old, and I watched him struggle from a young age. But one thing my father always told us was that if we work hard, we can have whatever we want. So this was something that stuck with me from a young age. And indeed, we always got work in the holidays. So we understood punctuality in working. So I was then sent to boarding school at 8 years old. So boarding school has memories of roasted onions, smelling the wax on the floor, dormitories with thin mattresses, wearing coats in the winter because there was no real heating and ice was inside the windows. But when you're at a boarding school full of boys, you learn about independence, you learn about courage, and also I learned about knowing when to speak and when not to speak. Of course, the opportunity was to learn, and there was lots of sports. There were many positives of the school. I also learned that there were some very, very smart kids, very intellectual, the kids that would go to the top universities. You could see this already. And I was always bottom of set one or top of set two. But what I observed is that these very clever kids, some of them were quite lazy. And so what I did is I was average ability, and then I climbed up because I worked hard. So this I learned from a young age. So then, as I grew up in the school, I was in the economics class. In fact, let me show you a picture of me when I was young, so we lighten the mood. So I did have my dancing days in my teens, and there I was as a little boy. I was actually quite shy. So in the economics class, I learned or was told that people are only in business to survive in business. Now, sometimes, and particularly today, that could be true for many people. But I was always taught that we're in business to make a profit. And so I automatically switched off on economics, and I failed economics. And when I took my first job in the City of London, they told me, don't worry, you'll do well. So one thing I did learn about economics was something called the law of diminishing returns. So if you look at this graph, you'll see David's chocolate law of diminishing returns. And I think it's quite important to know what this is about. So you'll see on the left, happiness and benefits, and then at the bottom there's squares of chocolate. Now some people have a great capacity to eat much more chocolate. But what you'll notice is the graph goes up, our enjoyment goes up on each square of chocolate. And then by 6 or 7, depending how big the squares are, of course, our appetite begins to go down. And if we keep eating, we're going to feel very ill. So the same way, if we look at what we're doing in our lives, if we acquire more and more, at the beginning when we get on a new car, we really enjoy it. But if we keep acquiring cars or we keep wanting to acquire, it all sounds good, but in the end, where on the curve does the curve change? Where in fact the reward becomes less and less. So I did learn something about economics. Now, when I went into the City of London, I didn't go to university. The first job I went for, there were 50 people applied for the job, and there were 2 jobs available. And when I had the interview, the manager, John, told me immediately, and this still applies today, of course there were no spell checkers then, is that he had 50 applicants, 30 resumes or CVs had spelling mistakes. So he threw them out on the basis if they can't be bothered to check their work, then they're clearly not going to check the work here. So this also applies today for all of us about checking and doing our best. So we all have spell checkers now. So this I learned along the way. And then on my second job, the small print said, you have to be 23 or more to apply for this job. I was 19. And I decided to apply for the job and take an interview. And I did get that job. So what I learned, and this is all part of what this talk is about, is knowing when to avoid the small print and to proceed. For successful people, in whatever we call success, it doesn't have to be money, proceed, and things don't get in the way. Of course, I'm not talking about pushing people out of the way, but we should have focus and know that when obstacles come, we can overcome them. So then I went into the world of bond trading. Now, what I've always done is I've always enjoyed talking to people. And when I've proceeded well in life, I've met many people in the strangest circumstances. And when I was coming back from a holiday, I met a guy called John, and he eventually got me a job as a bond trader. So it helps to talk to people. So this is what I've always done. And what I learned in that job, which is, I think, very applicable with many people looking at cryptocurrencies and all sorts of things, What I learned as a trader is best traders never took risk. They carried small positions overnight and they took little profits as they went along. Occasionally they would go for it. And the other thing, very important, I learned was always leave a profit for the next person. Don't be greedy. Don't think that if someone makes you an offer that, oh, it must be more and more. And lastly, the first cut is always the cheapest. The first loss we take is sometimes the lowest loss that we will have. So these things I learned along the way, and perhaps some of these may help you reflect a little bit. We've gone through the law of diminishing returns, and now I'm going to carry on. So at 23, I was made redundant from being a trader, and I set up my own finance house. And of course, young, ambitious, driven, I thought that I knew many things and then realized I didn't know very much. But I was eager to learn. And I also learned very quickly that it's important to choose gurus that help you. I had a very good number 2. I also had some very good advice from my father. And it is very important that life sends us opportunities and people that help us. And often, especially if we're in our career or we're running a business, it's sometimes very tempting to ask a friend what they think. But the friend, because they like us, they don't always tell the truth. So one of the things is to try to find somebody who can tell us honestly, who has the knowledge. So this I always found very important. So we set up a business lending to lawyers. The other thing that I was told by many people is that you'll never succeed, from other people in finance and banking. The reason they said this is that legal practices have been around in England for over 450 years. Some of them have banked with the same banks for 200 years. But I knew there was a niche. And I'm telling you this, so if you have a business idea, don't be afraid, be confident. Don't worry about the competition. See what people are doing, but be confident in your brand. But find the niche. What is the unique selling point that you have? And what I realized is that there was a service issue with the banks. As we all probably know, they're very slow. And so we speeded this process up. So then the business proceeded. And after 5 years, we made our first 6-figure profit after salaries. And then a bad debt came from a crooked lawyer. All of that profit was wiped away. So the whole year's work was wasted. So every business will have its pitfalls. The other thing I want to tell is every decade, every year has its difficulties. So when I watched my father at a young age, there was something called the 3-day week in the 1970s. He worked by candlelight because there was no power for 3 days a week. Oil prices quadrupled in the 1970s. When I was doing my job, there was a recession. Interest rates were 15 to 20%. So in the West, we're now having interest rates at 0%. So while some people are saying this is a difficult moment to be successful, I challenge that and say that every day is the moment that we can be successful. So continuing with my career, I began slowly to burn out. So by the time I hit my 30s, the business was growing. I was becoming more stressed. And then meditation came along. I had a spiritual experience and various things happened. Then I started to meditate daily. And that was about 27 years ago. And I've continued that practice. And I also met another guru. So everyone is our guru. Guru is a Sanskrit, which means invisible, and ru means visible. So the guru makes the invisible visible. So when we reflect after this talk, our parents are our first gurus. Our teachers are our gurus. And then I met a spiritual guru who was 91, and he taught me how to meditate. So I'm really grateful for that. And I've learned a lot about the philosophy of yoga and what yoga really is. And so this I will be integrating in this talk. And we have 3 other closed sessions for people who really want to go deep and to challenge themselves and overcome any difficulties so that they can make their dreams a reality. So let us now proceed further. I've been thinking carefully about what is the magic formula of success. So I've come up with this formula. By the way, I failed physics as well, but I thought it was quite amusing to come up with a formula. So S is success, and you'll see that symbol there means absolute infinity. So we can get infinite success. And then on the right-hand side, we've got L, F, C, F, and infinity. So what I'm going to firstly ask is, some of you have kindly told us what you think success is. So if John can share what people have said success is for them, because I'm really interested to hear the feedback.
Okay, David, just having a little look here at some of the answers so far. And just if you haven't answered this question already, feel free to type it into the chat so I can relate to David what you guys have said. So if you just want to ask them the question once more, David, and I'll get a couple answers we have already, just so they can pop an answer into the chat box.
So in a few words, does success mean to you? And what is the dream that you want to make a reality?
So we have one answer here, David. So just I'm going to read this one out. So inner peace, living in abundance, and my goals, dreams to become a reality. So
beautiful.
That's one answer. That's a really lovely one. As well, another one we have: success for me means achieving a meaningful goal I have set for myself, or which is valuable to someone else.
Amazing. That's a beautiful answer.
And another one. So sorry, David.
Keep going, please. Let's have them. I want this to be interactive, so please share the beautiful answers.
So another one is: success to me is being at one with myself and no longer worrying about the noise of the outside world.
Wow. What an audience. I should be listening and not speaking.
So we have a couple more here in the chat box.
Please.
Success is fulfillment and contentment. And I'll leave you answer that first, David, if you would like to.
Beautiful. Okay. So one of the other things, just before I get on to the success, one of the other things I learned was about making mistakes, which we all do. But one of the things that can help accelerate our success is not to make the same mistakes twice, to correct our mistakes. And it's often easier to observe the mistakes of other people and learn from that. And this can be in every aspect of our life. We are beings of energy, so what we attract comes to us, according to us and what our energy is. And part of bringing consciousness into our life, and what do I mean by consciousness? Some people call it their HP, their higher power. Some people call it God. I call it the invisible hand sometimes, or consciousness. So whatever that higher power is, or that consciousness, if we bring this into our life, then the attitude of success is automatically there. And as I found out in my career in my 30s, by meditating 30 minutes a day, I became more aware of consciousness. And I took that break. The mind needed that energy. And if we meditate properly, the energy is purified, and then we can proceed, and then we can really accelerate. Once I started meditating sincerely, my business accelerated. Now, I was driven to succeed in business, but then the attitude changed slightly, because this 91-year-old guru, I asked him, what is the purpose to life? And he told me, you are only born for self-realization. You are only born to know the truth. Now, at that point, I didn't know what he was talking about. So sometimes when we have a goal, we should proceed. We should leave the beach and go. If we keep thinking, what should we do? What should we do? We'd never go anywhere. So I say, if you have an idea, go and do something that you enjoy. And when you enjoy that, proceed, meet people, opportunities will come. The goal may change slightly, but sometimes we don't know what to do with our lives. Sometimes we're not satisfied with our career. Proceed, try new things, meet new people, because the dynamism in you will create that dynamism around you, and it will bring the people which will show you the way. And then suddenly you'll have that moment. And what came to me is, yes, I wanted some material success, but then I realized if more good people have money, then those people can give more money away. So this is the intertwining of consciousness and material success. So now let us proceed to the magic formula that I've come up with, LFCF. So what I've come up with is L. Of course, everyone's going to know what L means. L means love. So when we love what we're doing, there's no effort. When we don't like what we're doing, it's a big effort. So if we can manifest this love in everything we're doing, then it becomes easy. So love means sacrifice. If we want success, it could be anything, cooking a cake, whatever it is, we have to concentrate and we have to sacrifice our time and give that time to that activity. This is what every successful person does. Generally, if those people who are entrepreneurs, we're at A and we're focused to go to B, and we don't tend to look around us. So the same way, when you find something that inspires you, whether it's cooking or painting, you'll be absorbed in that activity, and then everything else melts away. And we have to practice. So in relation to love, I think this is a very key ingredient to success. And when we love, then we respect our employers. We expect our fellow workers. And when they're having difficulty, we can help those people. The other thing that I think is aligned with love is honesty. I was never afraid to say I didn't understand something. I would always find somebody to help me. I never sat there saying I didn't understand something. I don't know what the culture is today, but if you're a leader or you're in a large company, this honesty needs to be acknowledged, because if people are afraid to say that they've made a mistake, then those mistakes will be hidden. So honesty, this is consciousness. We can enjoy life as well. This is also attached to love. But if we're attached to assets, if we're attached, then we're not going to get satisfied. So let us now look at the second letter, which is F. Faith. Faith is extremely important for us to be successful. Faith in ourselves, faith in other people, faith in God or your higher power, it doesn't matter. I'm going to tell you a couple of stories about people that I've met who survived various traumas through faith. One of them is called Harry Spiro. He's 91 years old. He's a survivor from the concentration camps. Just imagine if you're 11 years old and your mother closes the door and says, "Don't come back. One of us has to survive." That is the last time that Harry saw his mother, father, and sister. And today, Harry has beautiful children and grandchildren, and all he feels is blessed. And then he understands what his mother said. So I also met a man called Marian Tursky, who I think is probably about 92, who is also a survivor of Auschwitz. I went to Poland in late 1990s. At that time, there wasn't people speaking English, and supposedly nobody was vegan, which I was. So I asked Marianne, what about faith for the people that survived? And he told me 1/3 said they survived because of faith in their friends. 1/3 survived because of faith in their God. And the other third survived because they had faith in themselves. So whatever faith means to you, faith is very important. Don't give up, but be intelligent. If something isn't working and you keep bashing against a wall, you may need to change course. Find somebody to tell you honestly if you need that guidance. And I want to tell you lastly about a recent client of mine called Steve. And Steve introduces himself as a bus driver. In fact, he's an Airbus driver. He's a pilot. And Steve learned how to fly before he could drive. He was 15 years old. He wanted to be a pilot from 2 or 3. Now, something terrible happened to him when he was 17. He was doing his various licenses. And at the flying school where he went, he was accused of stealing money, 3,000 euros. The police came and he found himself at 17 years old in the newspapers, accused of robbery, which he never committed. So at that moment, through grace, a family friend, he knew the son, got him a lawyer. And so Steve, of course, it was a big trauma because suddenly his whole career was in jeopardy and he could go to prison for something that he didn't do. So luckily the lawyer got him off. And then it transpired a few years later that the manager had tried to frame him because the manager's son was a drug addict and he indeed had stolen the money. Now, Steve was encouraged by his family, so he had a little faith there. Even though doubt comes, even for people with faith, keep the faith. If we have more consciousness, if we meditate more, we'll feel that inside of us. We'll feel that we're not necessarily this body or this mind. So now let us move on to C. So C is consciousness. So consciousness, this for me includes yoga, meditation, truth, ethics, morality, spirituality, higher purpose, all of these things together. So what is the best meditation to practice? Some of you have practiced meditation. I've practiced many techniques of meditation. I've practiced I need to go to the loo meditation. Why is there such a noise meditation? My phone is ringing meditation. I'm hungry meditation. I'm sure you've all practiced this as well. Meditation is not just closing our eyes. We're watching the breath for a purpose. The breath is carrying what is called prana in India, or chi, as in the Far East. It is carrying energy, the life force. This is why we watch the breath. So the more that we're in tune with the breath, and you'll notice I asked you to watch the breath through the nose and out the nose, gentle breathing. It is good to meditate with the window open, of course. Breath is not to force. Breath is to be conscious of that is breathing through us. So if you bring this into your yoga practice and feel that this movement is being done through you, you'll feel a big change in your yoga and meditation. Now, in the next weeks, we will do a meditation and we'll go much deeper into some of the yogic principles. So I'm going to share something with you, though, about yoga, which is the yogic analysis of the past to the present moment. So 20% of us in the present is made up of our genes, our parents. That some of that carries through. Then 30% is made up of conditioning, how we were brought up. We're like sponges. Some of you, like me, may have come through difficult childhoods, not easy at home. We're sponges, we take that in. So now we're in the present moment. We carry the effect of the past. And I told you what the monk said at the talk. Forget the past, it's gone. For some people, they find that very difficult. And the next weeks, we're going to talk also about how we can detach from the mind and the thoughts. We'll practice this. Because thoughts repeat the past, and most of our thoughts are negative and repetitive. So this is where meditation helps. So if you see the mind as a frying pan, a dirty frying pan, no matter how good the food is that we put in, it won't taste very good in the frying pan. And this is something we'll also cover about mindfulness and why you cannot do one without the other. So on the right is effort. We need to put in effort. But if we've got love, then the effort is less and less. I'm also going to show you now, just briefly, what's called the three gunas. This is not Arsenal Football Club. So you'll see that we have three inherent qualities governing our physical, emotional, and mental behavior. Rajasic, Sattvic, and Tamasic. Rajasic is when the breath is coming out more of the right nostril. Tamasic, it is coming more out of the left nostril. And Sattvic is when it is balanced. We will cover this in much more detail going forward. But I want you to understand that yoga is a philosophy, and I've been taught this by these gurus over 20 odd years, and I want to share some of this to try and bring it into simple language. So when we're rajasic, we're restless. We expect success. We want more and more. If we are extremely rajasic and extremely restless, we're power hungry. We easily get angry. We get greedy, and we can be a butterfly. We can't focus on anything. So those are on the extreme side of rajasic. Then if we look at tamasic, we can be lazy. We think we don't deserve success. We rely on handouts. Life is unfair. We're afraid. We get depressed. Life is difficult. We're not motivated. So most of us are born with a mix of these qualities. Some of us are more lazy. We like to sleep more. Some of us very restless. Now, the idea of meditation and yoga is to get the sattvic balance between the two. This can also be done by diet, which we'll also cover in the next weeks. So we get balance, success in every action. I have enough. Life is perfect. Life is a celebration, contentment, gratefulness, love, peace, and calmness. So that just gives you a little feel and a flavor about what meditation and yoga is. There's a lot more to come on this. Now, I learned another thing about economics. These are about the only two things I remember which are of value, which is the law of increasing returns. So many of us find it difficult to continue our practice. We give up easily. We say, it didn't work for me because my mind is restless. It was never more restless when you started to meditate. It's just that we're beginning to look inside. And you'll notice that this curve continues to go up. Our consciousness increases every year, every day. We continue to meditate. So I would say to you, my experience, when I was working flat out, big hours, often 6-7 days a week, find the 15 minutes a day, find the 30 minutes a day for meditation. Remember, there are 1,440 minutes in a day. 1% of the day is 14.4 minutes. Meditate for 1% of the day. Take the other 99%. So we're going to cover this in much more detail. So now I would like to take some questions. By the way, actually, hang on. I haven't told you what the last F is. Freedom. Freedom is about being free from our negative thoughts, having the power to free ourselves from outside influences. also creating a life of freedom. Life is short. This is a time where freedom is really important. So we're going to discuss much more about freedom. And really, success is about activating the positive parts of ourselves, increasing the positives and overcoming our negatives. That doesn't mean ignoring our negatives. We can work on them, but we can also get help from people because we can't do everything. Just like tonight, I've needed John and I've needed Ivan, and we've done quite a lot to set this up, and still it wasn't 100% perfect. So I'd really be delighted to have some of your questions. John, are there any questions coming?
So yes, David, there's a couple of questions. Just there's one here, and I'm just going to read it out. It says, I have to laugh at the beginning of this.
Is that right?
Thanks for this and for staying so blissfully calm through the technical issues. So yeah, that what other way would we handle a situation like that? Only through living and breathing David's words. So this has been really interesting, stimulating and inspiring. I know you spent quite a lot of time in silence a few years ago. What did that experience teach you? In particular, what did it teach you about success?
Thank you. So some years ago, I decided to do a human experiment, which was to go into silence indefinitely. I'll not tell the long story, but I spent 300 days without speaking. My family and friends didn't know where I was. I wasn't in contact with them at all. And I didn't speak one word until the end of the 301st day. And I was locked away in a castle in northern Italy, in an apartment for 6 months, and then for 4 months in an apartment in Vienna. So when we go into silence, of course, we become extremely aware of our senses and our observation, not only of ourselves, and when I would go for my daily walk, observing what is around me. So what I learned particularly was we give away our power too easily to others. And what that means is we allow people to agitate us. Let them say what they like, even someone close to us, but why do we react? So every time we react to something, whether it's an email, whether it's a colleague, the advice is to close the mouth and sit on the hands nowadays so you can't send a message back. Let the fire die down. So this I learned as the first thing, not to give away our power. Secondly, I learned that we judge people through our eyes. So even when I was walking, I saw somebody taking a cat for a walk on a lead. It's amazing what you see in silence. I saw people that may not have been dressed very well, and I thought, okay, what are they doing? And so I suddenly realized, why am I judging strangers? So all of us look at somebody and we make a judgment. So why do we do this? Because our mind is not still. So I learned these two things, and silence is extremely powerful. And I would really recommend at the end of every day, go home for 5 minutes, sit down, close the eyes and just be silent. You can do it as just reflection. So that's my short answer to the question.
Great. Okay. So we have another question there, David.
Yeah.
And it is, how do we calm the mind?
Why should we calm the mind? The nature of the mind is to be restless. Our problem is we attach to the thoughts. Why? Why are we so conscious of this part of our body compared to any other part of the body? So the mind, what I've realized through meditation much more, is to detach from the mind and be the witness to the mind. Let it chat, let it be negative. So what? Why do we pay attention to this? We'll go really much deeper into this in the next few weeks, because I know that when the negatives repeat again and again, we don't feel good. So the mind is there for us to use. It's a beautiful slave and a very bad master. So if we grab the mind, it's extremely useful. And after years of meditation, the mind expects the daily meditation. The mind will enjoy the meditation. But like anything, if we've allowed a horse to run away and we try to tame it, it's going to take a little bit of time. But see the mind as I do, which is my friend and not my enemy. This is one step to start with. Look at the mind as useful and ignore the negative thoughts. We'll cover this much more, and it's a great question. Thank you.
Another question there, David. How long did it take you to develop a daily meditation habit?
Okay, so it happened quite quickly, because when we see something that's of benefit, people who are focused, particularly in business, they just do it. They make the time. If you want something done, give it to a busy person. It's an old expression. It took probably, I would say, 3 or 4 years of daily meditation that it became as natural as brushing my teeth or taking a shower, which we all do every day. I continue and continue. So I'm in year 27 now. I'm still a beginner, genuinely. Sometimes the meditation isn't good. Why isn't it good? Because the mind is going, but that doesn't mean that what we're doing doesn't have value. So if we are connecting to our true nature, which is what meditation really does, then how can it be negative? So I would say choose a time of day and stick to that time of day. I guarantee the first time you do it, someone will interrupt you. Turn the phone off. If you've got children or family, the children in time will respect your time out. So we can always make time. Even if you do 15 minutes a day, do it every day at the same time. Proceed. And we're going to do some meditations. We're going to have a package which John will show you. We've got a special discounted package for the next 3 sessions, which will be 90-minute sessions. And there'll be a free meditation session with Q&A for those that sign up in the next couple of days. So we will cover this in the next weeks. And I'm very happy to be contacted by people also if it helps.
So just a couple of more questions there, David.
Yes.
So this next one's a good one. How to know that I am on the right path, like the correct business idea for the current time where effort will be paid out. So I guess that's one maybe a lot of people could relate to, David.
Okay. Well, you've got to leave the beach, so you've got to try it. So once you've identified your product or your service, put it out there. I was a real perfectionist in my business, but when I looked at a newsletter we did in the first year and looked 10 years later, it looked awful. So we all improve, but if you keep tweaking and fiddling without putting it out there, you'll be standing here for 5 years. So proceed, have a look at what other people are doing, but don't get too involved in that. Believe in yourself, have faith in yourself, and if you need help, then ask the right people for the help. In business, and we'll cover this also because I think this is important, there are certain things we should and shouldn't do. Don't spend a load of money on overheads and marketing. Begin slowly, put the idea out there. Your first client will come and they'll recommend you to other people. And one of the philosophies that we followed in business, which strangely many people don't, we always gave special deals or special offers to our existing clients before new clients. In today's world, it seems to be the other way around because that brings loyalty. So that's a short answer to the question.
Great. Okay. Just 2 more there, possibly, David.
Sure.
One, how important are material things for you, and how do you see prosperity? It's a good one.
Gosh. Okay, so I was driven from a young age. I thought I'll retire at 30. In fact, I retired at 42. So material success meant to me I would have freedom. I'm not a person that acquires things. I have one house and one car. For me, it is not of interest to acquire more and more. And as I said, and I'm happy to share this, I don't really talk about charity very much publicly. But I felt intuitively inspired when I was meditating, and as I did better and better financially, to give quite a good percentage to charity, which I did. I was very careful which charities I chose. And I can tell you something, the universe pays you back. Don't do it on the basis that follow David and I'll get more money. But my earnings increased every year. I don't know how, but I always got more the following year much more than the money I gave to the charity. So this I did. And I can tell you a short story. When I was thinking of changing my car was 8 years old, and I thought, okay, I'll get a car. So I did all the sums, got all the discounts, and it was my first sort of car, a Mercedes. So I thought, okay. And then I heard two people at a meditation class talking, saying, do you know, I can't understand people that waste their money on cars when they could give it to charity. And so I was standing there thinking, oh, am I doing the wrong thing? So then what I did is I gave the same money to charity as buying that asset. And in fact, that asset did reasonably well. It kept me going for 15 years with a car. So material prosperity, as the guru I met told me, everything is spiritual. There is no separation between material and spiritual prosperity. Everything is spiritual. So if we've got consciousness that comes to us in our daily lives and we're doing well in our careers, we can use that consciousness to help other people. It will come spontaneously who to help. Thank you.
Okay, just maybe the last question. So, David,
Okay.
What experience do you have with fasting in addition to the silence, and what would you recommend in this regard? Long-term habit versus one-time, short-term experiment for special experience?
Well, every night I fast when I go to sleep. So I'm getting about 12 hours. You know, I'm not a fan of fasting. It's not something that I've really done. I know that some yogis are doing this and there are some fads to fast. My diet is good. I've been vegan for 25 years. I've never felt healthier. There are certain yogic practices that I follow about when to drink water, watching the breath, to do with diet, which helps the digestion. I don't have any of these difficulties. So if it's a question of someone butterflying around, trying another technique, trying this, trying that, what I would say is try to stick to something. Have the diet to be balanced, sattvic. So we looked earlier about the three gunas. This also relates to the diet. So what we eat affects the mind. So if we go from one extreme to another, we eat badly, we drink Coca-Cola, we go to McDonald's. By the way, nothing wrong. I'm not saying you shouldn't do it. There'll be some effect on the mind. If we eat very spicy food, this will affect the mind. So then on the other extreme, we can do that 1 week. And then the next week we say, I'm going to now fast. So you'll see that we can go from tamasic to rajasic. We can move across. So I would say try and find the balance. If you want to try fasting, then try it. I personally, it's not something that I've really done or felt necessary because I feel healthy inside. However, just one thing to add, the more we meditate, the less sleep we need. And sometimes the diet then changes. John, anything else? Any other questions?
Just one more question there. So if you want, David.
That's all right. Thank you.
So just 1 second here now. Hi, David. Thank you very much. Really enjoying this already. May you please answer me how you separate success, be it money, happiness, or purpose?
Let's talk about happiness. what do very rich people have in common with very poor people? Both are thinking about money all day long. For me, that's not contentment. You can fully understand the person that doesn't have anything. They're thinking, how do I buy my food? But are very rich people happy? If we buy yachts and houses, trouble comes, I suspect. You have staff, you have agitation. Look, we did a Zoom call. We prepared for it the best we could. It didn't quite go to plan. So I think we need to find a balance. And when is enough enough? That's our own judgment. Now, one of the things about freedom, which I've added at the end as the last part of the formula, is within that is contentment. The happiest person in the world is the person who is content with what they have. Now, I've seen many people who don't have a lot of money who are content. I've seen people with money who become trapped, and this is also part of the freedom. We entrap ourselves. As soon as we're earning more money, we spend it all. And then we have to keep earning the money to pay for the bills. So it's a never-ending cycle. So by meditating and being more conscious, we won't be trapped by this. And we can find happiness. But if we're driven for more and more, and we want to acquire more and more, then it will never end. The desires will never end. And again, meditation helps a lot. Diet helps a lot. If we incorporate some of the yogic practices that I've learned, and I will share some of these over the next weeks, if we incorporate this into our life, we'll pick up good habits and new habits. And this will help us find the balance. And what we are generally looking at in the world is what we call happiness is temporary happiness. We went out for a beautiful meal. Then what? Do we have to go for a better meal to a better restaurant to get even more happiness? Do we have to buy a bigger car? Do we have to get a newer car than the neighbors? Where is our understanding that happiness comes from inside of us? And this is the real happiness. I hope that answers a little of the question, but it's a great question.
Okay, that's. I think that's all our questions for now anyway, David.
Good. So just to wrap up, I came up with this, be courageous, be a hero, face life or head on, and never give up. And so the next weeks, I've got a little slide here, which you can see. We've got a VIP ticket. Anyone who's signed up already for the following 3 weeks, there'll be closed sessions. They will also get this. John will share the link in the chat. If you sign up in the next 2 days, 10% of your money will go to 2 charities. One of those is called Hand in Hand, which is looking after a school in India where there's 450 children that came from very deprived backgrounds. And the other one is a beautiful vegan charity called Made in Hackney in London, where during these difficult times, they've been feeding 500 people a week. It's a beautiful charity. So part of what you're giving will go to that. And of course, I'm giving you a discount. So we will also have a free meditation session. The sessions will be interactive. We will practice conscious meditation, mind clarity techniques. And I want the feedback from you. Everyone that joins, I'm going to ask you what you want from the next 3 weeks. Because what I want is for you to get your success going and what you see as success. That's what I want to help you with. It's different for all of us. If it's in business, career, we can cover that. And I think it's very important. Some people are in careers they're not happy with. How do they get out of that?